former President Trump's personal relationship with Kim Jong-un was a failure for U.S. diplomacy. But President Biden can't go back to the strongman Obama approach against North Korea, and it would be a potentially fatal mistake if he surrenders the goal of denuclearization. That's the argument former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton had to say in his recent Bloomberg opinion column. So what's the solution? Well, let's ask the author. With me now is John Bolton. He served as National Security Advisor under President Donald Trump and UN Ambassador under President George W. Bush. He's also the author, of course, of The Room Where It Happened. Ambassador, thanks so much for taking the time. The big question, what should President Biden do about North Korea?
Well, I think the only chance here for a diplomatic solution is to include the problem of North Korea in the overall U.S.-China relationship. I think for far too long, under both Republican and Democratic administrations, we have bought China's argument that they're from the Chinese government and they're here to help with North Korea, to help mediate and work differences out. That's simply not true. I mean, I think the evidence is clear that China has enabled North Korea, certainly economically and politically, and I think scientifically and technologically as well, on both the nuclear and the ballistic missile program. So I think getting China to do what China has the unique capability to do, which is to turn the North Korean program off with a stroke, given China's economic influence in North Korea, that really needs to be a centerpiece of our diplomacy with China.
But China is very important to the United States as well. So what does the United States do about China to get China to act?
Well, I think this is one of the biggest problems the Biden administration has had and will have in formulating priorities when it comes to China. There's no doubt John Kerry thinks the biggest priority with China is climate change. And the administration has said something really incredible. All the top people, Kerry, Blinken, Biden himself, that the question of dealing with China on climate change will be set aside from all the other issues dealing with China. That's not going to happen. The Chinese are going to try and link things together. And I think if Biden is serious on denuclearization, and maybe he's not going to be, but if he is, you simply can't allow other priorities with China to override it. North Korea is a threat not only in Northeast Asia, to Japan, South Korea, and ultimately to the United States. It's a proliferation threat. Other rogue states, terrorist groups would come to them and seek advantages from North Korea that North Korea would be happy to sell for hard currency. So it's really a global proliferation threat, not just a regional nuclear threat.
So what about when it comes to some sort of deal? Because in your opinion column for Bloomberg Opinion, you say there are parallel recommendations for North Korea like there are now for Iran's nuclear program. So are you saying it's too late for denuclearization with North Korea and therefore a similar nuclear deal like the one with Iran should be considered?
No. That's the idea that denuclearization is now impossible is the argument of some people who, in my view, probably never favored denuclearization as the goal. They say that we should accept North Korea and Iran as nuclear weapon states and try to contain them as we did the Soviet Union during the Cold War. I think that analogy is badly inaccurate and really facile. But the main point is denuclearization is the only acceptable outcome when you have regimes very different, but when you have regimes like Iran and North Korea, given their threatening behavior. And if, as people in both the Democratic and the Republican Party have said over the years, it's unacceptable to have the world's most dangerous weapons in the hands of the world's most dangerous regimes, then I think we need to mean unacceptable. In the case of North Korea, I think our real objective, as it was supposedly since 1945, is the reunification of the Korean Peninsula along the lines of German reunification, where in effect the South absorbs the North. That would solve the nuclear threat right there. That's not something North Korea wants, but that's something we should be discussing with China.
Ambassador, I want to ask you about this recent BBC series called Trump Takes on the World. As the second summit with Kim Jong-un in Hanoi, Vietnam was falling apart, according to the documentary, President Trump offered Kim Jong-un a ride home on Air Force One. Were you present for that alleged invitation? And if you were, what was your response?
Well, I was there and I heard it, and I didn't respond at all because I was biting my tongue to avoid saying what I thought the response should be. It was a typical Trump offer on the spur of the moment. He thought it would be really cool to take Kim to back home to Pyongyang. He didn't think about any of the potential consequences or anything else. I think Kim was as taken aback as I was. That may have been a rare moment of agreement between the two of us. And Hanoi, and fortunately, he said no, so we never had to worry about the consequences.
Well, so let's talk Iran here. Same question as with North Korea. What should President Biden do when it comes to Iran?
Well, Biden has made it clear that he wants to get back into the 2015 nuclear deal. You know, the Obama administration regarded that deal as the second term equivalent of Obamacare in the first term. It was their biggest achievement. I think it's one of the worst deals that the United States has ever made. And I think Biden will find that the world is so different today from 2015 that it's not going to be as easy to go back in as he thinks. Among other things, the Gulf Arab states have begun to reconcile with Israel, something that the Obama administration's Middle East peace processors never envisioned. And I think this time the Arabs and Israel are going to be a lot more vocal about why they think it's a bad idea. It's why it's risky for them to release the sanctions that we've imposed on Iran merely on the say-so of the Ayatollahs that they're not going to pursue nuclear weapons.
I want to switch gears and talk a little bit about the U.S.'s relationship with Saudi Arabia's King Salman. Last night, Axios reported that Biden plans to call the king today, that coming before the release ahead of an intelligence report about the murder of the journalist Jamal Khashoggi. What do you know about this report?
Well, I don't know exactly what report it is, and if it's related to anything that I saw when I was in the government, I won't talk about it. But I will say this: this is a moment of truth, I think, for Biden. If he wants to have a fundamentally different relationship with Saudi Arabia, I think it's a reflection that he thinks he can have a fundamentally different relationship with Iran. And I think that part of the premise is incorrect as long as the Ayatollahs are in power. Nobody condones the murder of Khashoggi. Nobody has any doubt that the Saudi government was involved in it. This is a matter of realpolitik. In that region, we need the Saudis and they need us. When I was in Moscow once meeting with President Putin, he thought it was a real humorous subject that we might turn away from the Saudis. And he said to me, look, if you don't want to sell them weapons, that's fine. I'll sell them weapons.
Ambassador, I want to get your take on the Republican Party and the future of the Republican Party. Senator Mitt Romney of Utah says that if President Trump runs again, he'll win the nomination in 2024. What do you make of that? Do you agree? And what does that mean about the state of the GOP right now in this post-Trump world? Is it a post-Trump world for the GOP?
Well, I'm certainly doing everything I can to make it a post-Trump world, and I don't like to disagree with Senator Romney, but I don't think Trump is going to run in 2024. I think he will talk about it incessantly until then to help keep himself in the center of attention. But I think he knows he lost this election in 2020. He won't admit it, of course, because he's developed his they stole the election narrative. But he's very worried that if he runs in 2024, he won't be able to go with that made-up excuse another time. And, you know, being a loser is the worst thing in the world for Donald Trump, so I don't think he's going to run. I think he's caused enormous damage to the party. I think, though, I'm optimistic that we can fix it.
Ambassador Bolton, there are many members of the GOP in the House and the Senate who continue to refuse to acknowledge that the 2020 election was a free and fair election. The idea that it was stolen from the American people. What's the message that you have for them?
Well, I think there's a lot of work to be done because it's bad for the country. It's certainly not good for the Republican Party to have people who won't accept that reality. I think the truth is that the Democrats outsmarted the Trump campaign and the Republican Party. I think they pushed the envelope in a lot of ways. But, you know, if what they were doing was so palpably illegal, where was the Trump campaign in August and September and October? Why weren't they in court? Why weren't they protesting the steps in states like Wisconsin and Arizona and Pennsylvania then? Why did they wait till after the election? because Trump was out there discouraging Republicans from casting mail-in ballots. He did this to himself. Either that or the Trump campaign's lawyers were the worst legal team since memory runneth not back to the contrary. The fact is that Trump lost this election on his own. He didn't need to have it stolen from him. He lost it fair and square.
Last question. Who should the Republican Party look to for leadership right now?
Well, I don't think we need to look at one particular person. I do think this is a period of let 100 flowers bloom. I think that's good for the party. We as Republicans and conservatives believe in competition economically. We should believe in it politically as well. So I'd like to hear from the perhaps dozen or more people who might want to run in 2024. Let's hear what they have to say on philosophy and policy, not what we think about Donald Trump. That's in the rearview mirror as far as I'm concerned.
Well, for many Republicans, that's not the case right now. He does still loom large for them. Former National Security Advisor, former UN Ambassador, and author of The Room Where It Happened, Ambassador John Bolton. Mr. Ambassador, thanks so much for your time this afternoon. Really appreciate you taking it.
Glad to be with you. Thanks for having me.
The biggest stories the moment they happen from around the globe. Subscribe to Bloomberg Quick Take now for insight in an instant.